cryptocurrency market right now is still at $1.3 trillion. And we get the narrative in the market suggesting Bitcoin can actually fly to reach this level of market cap. So you have different thought process in the market, and the market is showing you different signals. So what does that actually mean? You can look into the fundamentals of one particular project, then go look at the price action. Like on the fundamental side, the narrative side, you are getting positive things, but price action is below a resistance. So this is going to play out only if you break through this resistance. This happens to be a trend line resistance for a long period of time. So if you break that, it's bullish. If not, if you're getting rejected, now your support zones are actually lower, right? That is the fact of the market. But Bitcoin is driving the market. What do you think is going to happen in Bitcoin? One of the biggest possibility after doing a three-wave structure is a corrective signal, a move to the downside. But how low can that be? No one knows. But one of the biggest possibility here is like, okay, we may actually come back down to $28,000. If that doesn't hold, now we are looking for 25,000. Now, yes, we do have short-term trend line supports, but most likely that is going to meet the price along with this 28,000 range of support. Now, if Bitcoin is about to correct lower, what does that mean for you and your portfolio? Are you looking to bleed all the way back to $15,000 Bitcoin? Or are you going to see massive opportunities inside this market? Because right now you are watching a lot of coins starting to take off. Right now you're observing volume entering into a lot of different assets. So it kind of gives you an idea where things are changing one by one. Some of those look like this. Say we were actually talking about TLM. And we were like, okay, here we are in March, mid-March. We think there is going to be a correction to the downside and then we will bounce to the upside. And right now, when we look at that mid-March, we started going back down. We corrected to this low and then we started moving back up. So now we are closing to the range 1 target and then we have higher targets. Agreed. But the price action did give us some idea like this, which I posted here, right? Now, we are also observing a lot of other assets hitting our targets, a lot of these breaking through to the upside. Some of them does look like a big opportunity, right? So once you understand there is huge opportunities existing in this market and you get the breakout target, it is kind of the easiest point to understand that you can also make this. Just you need to take the best educated decision in this market. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where the normal retail guys get learn how to become the next top 10% of this world. While we look at different assets, Ether is an important one. RSI does suggest to you that a couple of lines are being matched, right? We are breaking through those levels and we are also making a rounded bottom pattern. So that does not actually go directly into the bearish territory, and the pattern break out here is important. Right now you actually observe the fact that Ether broke to the upside from a bearish pattern. A falling wedge breaking to the upside is ultra bullish because of the fact that it was not a fake out. We got first candle breaking out through that pattern. We got another candle which broke even higher, which happens to be a long-term resistance. Now, what we would like to see personally is that it come down to test this level of resistance, which now should act as a support, and then bounce higher from that range. It will be one of the healthy scenario for the market to look for a higher high as we grind, because now when you move on to a higher time frame, we're using Ether to understand what the altcoin market looks like. That is why we are focusing on this asset. Now, once you understand the fact that, yeah, we broke to the upside, RSI on a 3-day is at the overbought territory and we are at the bottom. We came low like this and right now we are going back up. That does mean something. Historically speaking, when something like this happens, you usually have a retest of that range and then your macro bull run enters the market. Because at that time, there is no turning back. And if we happen to get that consolidation here, that is going to be the window you can accumulate all these assets which you really want to hold on to. So that can be a short-term duration or a macro duration. Here, it shows like 100 days, which for accumulation is going to be crazy because you get a lot more time to make a lot more units in the assets which you like. So when we go back to XRP, this is the fact. XRP as an asset is still inside the short-term corrective move. We haven't yet moved above this channel or close below this. So we are still inside that. But remember the point here on a daily, the RSI is still pointing to the downside. What we are observing is that the price is slowing down. It tried to break to the upside, but eventually sellers came back in. So we are right now in a pattern like this. But what's optimistic is to understand like, okay, we had a short-term pattern like this. Recently, we broke that to the upside, we retested and bounced. So if that short-term narrative is about to play in the medium term, that is going to be a positive thing. But we go back on a 3-day chart. Remember, while we were here, we were giving you the narrative like, okay, we had a engulfing candle to the downside, so we may go back up. And this range, if it acts as a resistance, now this engulfing candle, the bearish move, is your mother candle, meaning that is the range you are looking for. If that happens to break to the downside, now that is bearish. That means short term, you are going to actually come back down and most likely support levels are going to be close to say this previous level of resistance turning into a support. Now that's on a 3-day chart. Now you can actually zoom out as much as you want to get a clear picture, but understand today is that day where we are like, okay, we are here, we are waiting for this week to end, but we are going to get a daily close now. We just got that and it shows like, okay, you just got an inside candle. That was the last day which just closed. So right now we still have another 24 hours to go for this weekly candle to end. So if that weekly candles end above the zone, that is good, that is positive. If not, that means you first got a hangman pattern here, which is the corrective candle, and followed by which you are, if we close like this or below in terms of price, that means that the price is now getting a hammer. So one hanging man, negative, then a hammer at the resistance, negative. So that means you are going to come back down. So that's going to be the opportunity, which a lot of people, I personally have heard, I would have bought more XRP at these price levels. Now, if that's true, then you're going to get an opportunity like that. One of the primary reasons for that is that the market actually shows you that Bitcoin dominance can actually move lower. And if that happens to be the case and Bitcoin itself is dropping, now you have a trend in the market where some random altcoins are going to burst through. Now, you can actually look for, say, various different assets on a medium term, on a long term. Say, if you go look at the narrative of moving into a decentralized exchange, you know, that kind of passion coming into the market, we can actually say that there is a most likely scenario playing out here, in my opinion. I can be wrong, but I think this asset is actually showing you something that accumulation range broken, retest, bouncing, the bull flag, breaking to the upside. So all of this, in my eyes, is actually bullish. So whenever you get a price structure like this, if it is me, I would say like, okay, it's a buy the dip. Whenever there is a drop in price, it would be best to enter as soon as the price reaches the moving average. So if you have enough patience, now you're waiting for the price to come back, retest this level and buy it there. That's going to be one of the easiest way to make a right choice. But again, we as investors in the market have thought process. You may not think like what I'm thinking right now, but the best thing to do is to look at the macro assets one by one and look for what the market is showing you. Because right now, when you actually go into the market, you have a lot of different segments of assets which are trying to move up and beyond. And one of the key part you have to understand is on a weekly basis, you actually see a lot of these assets now moving up. And right now in the short term, you see them correcting down. So that is where you are like buy the dip. Now go look at the pattern, the price structure, and if you think that's going to go higher for that particular asset, great. Now most of the assets are actually posted here with the thought process of what's happening, right? And that's one of the reasons why we are like, okay, if we have the idea like this, you may have an edge in the market. Who knows, right? Now, when you actually come back into the market, primary thing we need to actually consider is say, you know the fact that XRP has pairing against dollar, agreed. It also has pairing against Bitcoin and Ether. So one of the easy things to look for is like, okay, what's XRP BTC doing? We have this resistance, which we have not yet reached. We are playing in a pattern where this still is a resistance. We tried to break that down and briefly for some time, we thought that, okay, we are about to break higher. But here we are still below that level. So if you zoom out, you'll understand one thing. This is historical lows or close to that, right? That's where opportunities are identified. And then we look for the RSI, like what does RSI show us? This is all the way from 2019. The RSI is kind of putting in lows, which actually come back up and touch this level and bounce. I'm like, that is trend lines. You go into the golden benchmark thing of finances CFA books and look for technical analysis. They give you this thought process. They give you this idea clearly. That's what JP Morgan traders, whoever you take in the giant world of trading, the macro guys, you will see them using these basic stuff. So denying the fact can be bad. Now, coming back to the price action, what we are looking at XRP BTC is we are still here. We have not yet made a clear breakthrough. We're still below this resistance. We need to break this level and go back to this and test this level. That's going to be the hard part for XRP right now. But then you zoom in to see like, okay, Bitcoin is dropping. Can XRP actually move up at this time at least? Right? That's the easiest thought process to actually think like. And I'm like, okay, we may actually see a ABC pattern that looks good to say like, okay, that just played out. So mostly the correction is done. Can we now please go to the upside, right? XRP holders would be thinking most likely in that way. And I'm like, okay, I'm an XRP holder. I'm looking at the price action. I'm looking at the trend. And I'm saying, okay, what I'm watching on shorter time horizons is that it is trying to break higher. So if we manage to break this, now you have some room to run for XRP in terms of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is dropping. That means XRP may stay the same or grind a little bit to the upside. Now, if that happens to be a high momentum move, that means even against the US dollar, we are bursting to the upside. Now, to get a better perspective, okay, that's against the Bitcoin. Now, what happens if it's against Ether? So we get an idea about, okay, what the general altcoin market is doing with respect to XRP, because we kind of use Ether as a benchmark for altcoins. That's how the market actually looks at it. Now we are like, okay, we actually have watched this pattern evolving. We are doing ABC here too, but we haven't yet made a bounce. So once we get a bounce, we are able to say like, okay, that's the support range. But right now, if you try to connect the supports, if it's me, I would say like, we still have some room to the downside against Ether. So if you actually compare XRP and Ether may move higher. Ether can be stronger. And we just saw that Ether may actually come back down to retest this previous breakout before it actually bounces. So that now gives us the idea of, okay, that means XRP USD, what we just talked about, the possible correction, we cannot deny the fact that it can come into the market. And if you are waiting for a buying opportunity, that's all you actually want. But if you are a holder who actually bought the bottom, now that's like, okay, that's another couple of weeks added into the level of patience which you actually needed, right? That is again important. But now one of the easy things which we always say is the macro. Don't forget this macro structure. If you still manage to stay above this macro trend line, there is something happening in the market. Last time on a monthly, when you actually had this in the RSI, you know what happened. Right now, the RSI is giving you exactly the same thing with a higher level of momentum. So if you are not following the price action because it's a lot of noise, then forget that. If you want to actually get a little bit smoother RSI, go into the price, change the chart from Japanese candlesticks to Hiknashi, and now come look at the RSI. It kind of gives you a little bit more clear picture, less noise to digest easy information, right? Now, if you are like, okay, I don't want that monthly, then you can go on a weekly. It again allows you to look at the market in a way so that you can understand that, okay, this particular level happens to be a support. Then it turned into a resistance. Great. After which you see the particular level is now acting as a support resistance zone. So whether you come here, get bounced, get rejected, all of that. But now remember, this is a weekly chart, not a daily or a 4-hour chart. So it is significant enough to show you the market structure, kind of giving you the clear idea, like, what we want to see is which points give us the most valid trend line, meaning 3 or more touches or the most touches. The others are like the outliers or the standard deviations. So while we understand that, okay, the market actually believes that it is going back up, on a weekly you got a double bottom, a continuation pattern, and a bounce for XRP USD. So for me, I would say there is no denying the fact that this asset is looking great on the weekly. Now, if you are entering into the bullish territory, go back in history, it kind of shows you like, 90% of the time when you enter into the overbought territory, that's when you start to get momentum in price. You burst through the roof of the price action. That is something interesting to watch. When it happened here, remember that happened after a long period of time. So the guys who are holding this asset had to literally wait like 1, 2, 3 years, more than 3 years. So if you waited 3 years, we would have also listened to a lot of complaints. I've been holding this asset for like 3 years, 4 years. This is doing nothing. But what happened is if you decided to move out of the market during that time, you missed this entire life-changing run to the upside. Similar thing, you made the last stop here, you came back down in 2021 May. Right now, we are almost nearing 2023 May. It's been 2 years and now you're closing back up to that level. So it's more or less like a generational wealth creating opportunity as we discussed in last couple of posts. So if you are familiar with those, you already understand like, okay, this is something you may not actually want to miss out, because if that happens, now you may go back and kick yourself saying, shit, I missed that. That's not something you actually want to do in the market. What you really would like to learn from the market is, okay, let me take my time and see if I'm observing something similar historically. And if so, let me take advantage of that. If the market is showing me it's reversing, it tried bouncing from one level, then came back to that same level again and bounced, that means now, one thing which a lot of people have hard time is the price action, the pattern, the trend line. Now, those are actually the easiest form to understand for normal human beings. If you are literally going into the market, the pattern, it's actually the supply and demand. When the supply is increasing and the demand is reducing, that's when you actually get this. When the demand is reducing slowly. So at this point, demand is still there, it's coming in, but they are slowly reducing. But whenever you see some panic, bad news, that's where the demand kind of vanishes and the supply, the sellers jump in. That's when you get this massive capitulations. So it's basically the supply and demand equation, but when it actually moves in a particular trend, now that's a trending market. And you use price action to understand, okay, historically, the psychology of the market works like this. And if you are able to read the language of technical analysis, now you have an advantage in the market. So if you are looking for things like this, again, you can look for the link in the description below. So guys, if you received value, please do hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done that already. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.